Hello, everyone. Welcome to Witness to Love podcast. My name is Samuel Paul Bryant. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm the founder and owner of Witness to Love Family Counseling Services. Today, we have the great privilege of introducing you to our newest therapist, David Shanks. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing beautiful. All right, it's great to have you here. We're so excited to have you on board. Can we start by telling us kind of where's your life at today?
Yeah, so I guess the most recent development is finished up schooling at Franciscan University over
Awesome.
in Ohio.
Yes.
And then I just moved back. Arizona's my hometown, so sort of little return to the kingdom type thing. Right.
Return to the Kingdom. That's
Yeah.
great. So tell me a little bit. So you went to Steubenville
Mm-hmm.
University.
Yeah. So
What kind of a school
Franciscan.
is that?
So Franciscan is fundamentally Catholic, right?
Awesome.
Like that's the foundation for them, and that
Yes.
was my driving force to going there. They run all these different conferences around the country, and that's sort of like their namesake. Yeah.
Gotcha. How was that for you getting a Catholic education as a therapist as opposed to maybe a secular education?
Yeah, I think that sort of compounds on itself, right? Because undergrad is its own decision, right, to sort of enter in and you want a Catholic education, but then as you niche yourself as a counselor,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a lot more tricky. And so I made it very clear early on in this process that I needed a Catholic education, right?
Awesome.
Yeah. So I think the way it was different is that, opening classes with prayer and then just having that be a dialogue, even in like, talking about like diagnosing and things like that, these
Yes.
dilemmas, right? Something that you wouldn't get at a secular college. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So what inspired you to become a therapist?
I've been thinking about that quite a bit, right? Because part of me doesn't want to sound cliche, but then some other part of me knows that that's like almost inevitable. And I think to keep it semi-short is that there's like the practical piece and then there's a more like spiritual, profound piece. I
Yes.
think practically speaking, there's that aspect of like, I need a job, I need to do something I'm good at, right?
Mm-hmm.
People tell you you're good at talking to people, etc. Those things that I think a lot of counselors encounter
Absolutely.
growing up, right? But I think beyond that, as I've been healing, because we're all on this constant journey of healing,
Absolutely.
I began to encounter God more and more, and He kept driving me towards counseling, not necessarily what I had envisioned for myself. And so it became this openness, this surrender. And I
Yes.
think like as things continued going on and those encounters became more and more specific, He drove me into this field.
So you really feel like it's a calling from the Lord that you enter this field.
Yeah, I think there's this big, especially with Catholics, there's this big wanting to understand what your vocation is,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I think that in turn, as many mysteries of the faith there are, it can be very like scary and daunting, right? To maybe
Mhm.
not have like that certainty, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's in part because people want to take so much control over that.
Yes.
And so that learning curve, sort of like I described, of surrendering to let God pave the way for what I needed to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. What do you find your particular modalities of practice are at this early point in your practice?
Yeah, it's a good question. I love the interpersonal process. It's not like the most well known as I say it, but that in tandem with internal family systems.
Yes.
And basically what that means is that I'm very much, as a lot of modalities are, focused on the present moment.
Yes. Good.
But it's really important for me to understand what's going on between me and the client and talk about that sense of what's happening relationally between us.
Awesome. Is there a particular demographic that you prefer to work with?
Yes, I've had a lot of experience with people struggling with trauma and then sort of like some of the, I don't know, different diagnoses that come with that. Maybe that's like an eating disorder, depression, anxiety, things like that. And then I'm
Yes.
also a little specialized and enjoy working with people with autism as well.
Okay. How did you get experience in that field?
Yeah, so my internship was definitely a trial by fire, as I think most people's are.
Yes. It is.
I mean, I remember my very first day just going in, and my supervisor was just like, all right, go shadow this person, and it just gave me the reins, and it was this like, I It was wild, and I won't get into any many of the details of it, but it was just this crazy experience of trying to sort of like wrangle in and help this person who did not want my help.
Yes.
So it was a very humbling experience, but I ended up doing that for a good while.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Good to know. Uh, when you think about healing, I like to ask everybody this question. Uh, what do you witness is healing when you're working with a client? How do you see it?
I see healing as, well, going back to the relationship piece,
Mm-hmm.
all healing occurs in relationship,
Wow.
right? So, and the most fundamental or prime example of that is healing in relationship to God,
Yes.
right? So I think in turn, some of that stuff, those dynamics can play out in session with a client. And so to not get too like jargony, so to
Yes,
speak,
yes.
I think a way that could occur is, clients come in and throughout treatment, they begin to sort of let their guard down, and some of these like, well, maybe not even let their guard down, but defenses and old patterns come up between us, right?
Yes.
And a big part of healing would be in me being a counselor, being able to respond to you, the client, differently than how people have responded to you in the past.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good, good, good. Have you experienced any particular profound healing in your life or even working with a client that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think personally,
Mhm.
a big thing for me was I had like I don't know, sort of like medical incident a while back, and then, that sort of leads to a lot of insight, and I ended up seeing a spiritual director who doubled as a counselor, right, like in terms of his knowledge, right? He had this
Yes.
dual grasp, but I was seeking him as a spiritual director. Um,
Yes.
and I think during that relationship, a big thing is empathy, right, amidst all sort of these relational works. And
Yes.
so I think it was his empathy to a lot of like the despair and the pain and the wounds that I had, right? And the non-judgmental compassion that he presented
Yes.
towards me
Beautiful.
provided me with a lot of space to actually to enter into those unwanted things that I had never let anyone else in on.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I find as a therapist, it's been a privilege for me to work with the clients that I have because experiencing their wounds helps my wounds heal,
Yeah.
which is, I wouldn't have thought of that when I first became a therapist,
Mhm.
that how healing it was going to, and transformative it was going to be for me. So it's beautiful to hear that, you can take your own experience of healing, right, and use that to help your clients. When you think about, like you were talking earlier about how God continued to lead you into this field, if you were to put on a resume, what are your particular talents as a therapist? What,
Ooh.
what would that be? What are your particular talents that make you a good therapist?
Yeah, that's a good question. Very good question. Because you do want to differentiate yourself as a therapist, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to just like end up falling into a box. I think an important thing for me is the intentionality, like I mentioned, that present moment type.
Yes.
I think I offer a different style of communication that a lot of therapists don't engage with,
Yes.
right? Having that notion of like bringing the client in on the process of like, having them understand what's going on with me in that
Yes.
moment, I
Yes.
think that opens up a lot of different things. But I think more practically speaking, a lot of the stuff that can add is like in terms of trainings related to the trauma we talked about,
Yep.
narrative work, parts work, right? So there's these little subsets that sort of like, let's say that the interpersonal process is maybe like the language, and then I can
Yes.
have different forms of like maybe writing or styles that I attribute to each of the different clients. So
Awesome.
that diversifies me, I think. So
Absolutely.
I'm not really worried what type of client's coming in because I know I can adapt that language so that they understand it.
Awesome. Beautiful. So one of the questions we like to ask is, imagine you're going on a trip, right? Let's say you're going up to a trip to Flagstaff, maybe a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
And you can bring on that trip anyone you wanted, right? Any historical figure, anybody present in your life today. Who would you want to make that journey with?
Who would I want to make that journey with? That's a great question. I feel like, well, here, I'm going to caveat it a little bit because my immediate response to that would be Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that's, and I think that goes for a lot of like Catholics, for example.
Exactly.
Oh man, anyone living or dead?
Anyone, any historical figure, any person living in your life today, any person living in the world that you thought, oh, that's an interesting person. I'd like to meet them.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna go with Saint Agnes, actually.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I feel
What does
like
St. Agnes mean for you?
Saint Agnes has been this. I think a lot of people have like saints that stalk them, so to speak, and
Yeah.
part of me feels that way about Saint Agnes.
Yes.
I began, just to keep it also brief, is that I first encountered Agnes just as a saint or even just as a person. Going back to Franciscan, they have this like tomb of the unborn, and one of the children there is named Agnes, right? And
Yes.
so I would go to the tomb, I would pray for all these kids, and I always had a little stuck point with Agnes. I felt bad because I felt like I was giving Agnes a little bit more attention than some of the other kids.
Yes.
But I just ended up offering up for that kid. And then eventually I went to Europe and we went to this church dedicated to St. Agnes.
Yes.
And I think for whatever reason, just kind of like the way you sort of surrender to God, I had all these feelings and I started praying and I felt like I was able to encounter God through St. Agnes a lot
Wow.
better, right? And
Yes,
her sense
yes.
of like purity and innocence.
Yes.
Those things come up a lot with clients and people, and I
Yes.
feel like I'm able to understand those aspects better.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story. You know, not all of our viewers are going to be Catholic. To
Mhm.
see the relationship we have with the saints, how the saints lead us to
Yeah.
Christ, and they're like stalkers.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, I really like that. I'm gonna have to ponder on that. But our connection with the saints, I think, help us become better healers.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like my relationship to the Virgin Mary, my own patron Saint Paul, and their wisdom really helps me as a human being to be more present to my clients. You know, I don't know how that works, but that
Yeah.
community of saints really fills me with a sense of support. You know.
Yeah.
So, as we kind of wrap up this little interview, is there anything in particular you want to share with anybody who may be watching this podcast to let them know kind of a little bit more about who you are?
I mean, maybe more so, maybe in a broader sense, but I want to go back to the healing thing we
Yes.
talked about. I think it's extremely important for anyone who's thinking about therapy, has had previous experiences with therapy, anything related to that. When it comes to my work, I carry with me a very profound and deep sense that there's always hope for healing,
Yes.
right? I think therapy can be a really like scary thing to enter into,
Absolutely.
and it shouldn't have to be, right? It's a really unfortunate state of how things tend to be, right?
Yes.
You know, previous encounters, all that stuff.
Yes.
So I guess I just hope that maybe that resonates with someone, that in going to therapy, in seeking help, you can have hope of healing from the things that have been burdening you.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, can you share a little bit, David, about how your faith life affects how you practice as a therapist?
Yeah, I think I have a twofold response to that. I
Mhm.
think outside of session, like maybe before and whatnot, I take special precedent to pray, essentially,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I think that's like a really important aspect, is not let my anxieties or anything that's like, you know, superficial enter into the session,
Yes.
but to let it be completely, like, I don't know, maybe not completely, but have that spiritual component. And we talked a little bit about like the support, right, that
Yes.
spirituality offers us. And so I think engaging with that takes off a lot of the weight and maybe like the loneliness someone could feel going in being like, oh my gosh, this person needs my help and it's all on me, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's one part of it. But then in session, it's actually interesting. This is like the first time I've seen Catholic clients, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's this. So that had been pretty much all of my experience up to this point, was just having God enter into it prior to even interacting with the clients, and then most of the time it would seldom come up, right?
Yes, yes.
But now, as I'm beginning to see more clients who are Catholic and are interested in that, it's completely determined by our relationship, right? You know, So if someone wants there to be prayer at the beginning or the end, let's incorporate that. You know, if they want extra resources, let's incorporate that.
That's awesome.
But I think having the client have the opportunity to act in freedom
Yes.
is especially important, and bring up what they want in session and having me bring that in as well.
That's beautiful. Awesome. Well, David, thank you for your time today, and thank you for being a part of our practice. I'm really looking forward to seeing your growth as you develop here. And thank you very much, everybody who's watching. God bless you. Have a great day.